So firstly, we need to render something, and that is done with the help of render. All right. So firstly, I have to type the render method, render, and then I have to get the element itself, which is nothing but the search element. Search element. Search from. Now let me try to render this component of search, and then what I'll do is I told you that there is an ability to watch your code, correct? So let me comment this as of now and just type screen.debug. Debug allows us to literally print the component what we have rendered here. One thing you have to understand very clearly is that this render method will only be available until this test file is completed. Once this test file is completed, you can simply throw this off. The testing library will literally clean up. So this won't be mounted in your original DOM. This will be just usable for your testing purposes. So this render method is different and your original render method is different. So that is something you have to take a note of. All right. So let me just run that test once again. And now you can see that you have the entire tag itself. Could you see it, people? You have a body tag, and then you have a div tag, which is nothing but the app component. And then you have another div tag, which is nothing but your search component. So how easy it is to literally look out for your DOM elements, all because of just DOM as well as your React testing library. So this helps a lot to check what has been rendered until this point. All right. So now time for us to check for any particular checkers. So what I'll do is I'll just get by role and then press what is a role here? I think it's input. Let me try it. So you know what? Let me just delete the app.js file for now. Not delete it. Let me just comment this one and then instead copy, paste an empty test because this is running this file as well, which is taking quite a bit time. That's why. Let me uncomment it and save it. And this will literally run it quickly. All right. Container.query selector is not a. Oh yeah, I need to use screen. I forgot that. So I have to just screen. Either you can do it by this way or you can destructure it directly here. Both are completely fine. You can either destructure it like this and just say get by role. This is also completely perfect. Or you can use the direct screen method. The only thing that is different between the previous destructured and this one is this is like document.query selector. And that is by that element.query selector. Did you understand the difference? In JavaScript, we would use either by document.query selector, which is the entire document itself. And then the previous example, what I showed was that particular element.query selector. Okay, fine. So let me just come back here, delete that, save it. And it will take some time here. Oh yeah. Now it says unable to find an accessible element with the role of input. Here are the accessible roles. It says that we have an element called body, which is of role document. Right? It also allows us to see what are all the available roles in our component, which is super useful. Right? It also says that we have a generic role. It also says we have a text box role. So it is not an input role, but rather a text box role. So this is something somewhat informative. So let me just type text box here, text box, and then say expect. Let me just wrap this with expect here, and then say to not to be null. All right, so I'll just say not to be null. That's it. So all I'm saying is when I'm rendering this, I'm expecting some text box and it should not be null. As you can see, it has successfully passed the functionality. So that is literally regarding the get by role. But this is where things start to get messy. Now, what if I type something else? Like let's say I type improper role. If you could see before, we had an error, and that is because I told you if that element is not found, you will get an error. But now let me try to check with query, because I promised you that I would explain it, right? So let me check it by query. And instead of text box, let me just cancel this one. Oh yeah, it will run obviously, but just would pass. Let me just rerun it again. And as you can see, it still passes. During get by role, I was having a failing test. But here, I can still query this particular role and still pass this test because I don't have any assertion here. I didn't have any expect method here. The get by function did not allow to move forward, but in query by, it still passes your test. So let me just have the element here and then console log that element. Console log element, right? So now, once again, the test will start going inside. Okay, so as you can see, this is what we have got as of now. Sorry, not that one, this one. This is what we have got as of now. It sees that we have the value of null. So you can literally say expect element to be null, or even more than that, you can still say not to be in document, because if you could remember, that is one of the extra methods which just DOM provides us. Could you see to be in the document? So what I'll do is I'll just come back and just say to be in the document, right? So now we'll save it. And then run this one. And as you can see, it has passed the test. Actually, just doesn't care about whether you have an assertion or not. If it has an assertion, then it will try to see that assertion. If it doesn't have any assertion, it will assume itself that the test is a passing test. Unless and until you throw an error voluntarily, the test won't fail. Let me show you. Let me just voluntarily throw an error here. Throw new error, some error. That is how just has been designed. If you are not voluntarily expecting something, it will just assume it as a passing test. But if it has either an error or if the assertion fails, it will say the test has been failed. Did you see this? So that is the reason why we had the failing test before. If you could remember, get by will give you an error. It won't give you the value null. So the next functionality what I want to show you is the ability to fire events, because that is exactly until now what we have seen is we can able to like make sure before going to the firing events, I want to talk about find by. Now this would be a good opportunity to speak about find by. Find by is super useful if we are having conditional rendering. Now what do I mean by that? Well, if you could remember, we would have some sort of API fetching, and after we fetch some API, we would say if the value has been set to something, you have to show something. Otherwise, do not render anything. So how do we check whether that element has been mounted or not? Well, there comes the rescue of find by. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going inside my search component and then have a dummy user value, right? Like let's say is loading. Just imagine that we are having some API operations here, and then we will be turning back this is loading back to true after some, like let's say 1 second or 2 seconds. Okay, so let me have the value of false, and then what I do is I will just have the component did mount function. All right, then assume that we are setting this is loading to true after 1 second. Okay, so let me just say set timeout, and then after 1 second, I'll simply set the state to is loading as true. All right, so just a small function.